Did you know your superannuation isn't just for retirement? It's a powerful tool to grow your wealth and to protect it from inflation. But most people don't maximize its potential. I recently had an interview with NRI Money Clinic wherein I shared my insights about how superannuation works in Australia and how you can make it work for you. Stay with me as I break down this complex topic in the most simplest way so you can secure your future without stress. Here are the snippets of the interview. Stay tuned.
Parul, my first question to you is what is superannuation and what is it popularly known as in Australia?
Sure. Australia's superannuation system is one of the main way that most people save for their retirement in Australia. And superannuation, short form or most commonly, you will hear the word super. So, usually people will say it super. So I will also, whenever I say super, I mean superannuation. So superannuation is a tax efficient saving system primarily for retirement. So, just to give an analogy, if somebody, let's say, is watching from India, the way we used to have a provident fund, the employers used to deduct a certain percentage of the base salary and they used to contribute in a PF. It's similar to that. So, here the employers are mandated to contribute 11.5%. So, as on July last year, 2024, previously, it was 11%. Now it has been increased to 11.5% of the base salary. The employers are supposed to contribute on your behalf to your nominated super fund. And people can also do some voluntary contributions to grow their retirement funds faster. So typically, whenever somebody is doing some additional voluntary contributions, it's usually up to a cap. So here in Australia, we call it concessional contributions. So as on financial year 24, which is, the last financial year, the concessional contributions cap is 30,000 Australian dollar. So that is a combination of the 11.5%, which the employers will usually contribute. You can also do a salary sacrifice. Some people do that. And then on top of that, if you want to make, let's say, for example, if you have made only 20,000 AUD until a financial year and you have a gap of 10,000, then people can do some extra contributions as well. Now, the employers can choose their super fund. So, for example, if somebody has joined an organization, they will usually fill up a form wherein the employer will ask that, hey, do you want to have your own? Do you want to have chosen your own super fund, or you maybe want to go with an employer specific super fund? So you can transfer the funds, you can consolidate, all that is possible. But yeah, in a nutshell, its main purpose is retirement. However, there are many other benefits as well. And it's commonly known as super in Australia.
Going back to the thing, Parul, one thing what I know is super is a long-term investment. It is not irrespective of whichever life stage you are in. It's a long-term investment. See, when you get into a long-term investment, the first thing that anyone has to work on is creating wealth, which means it has to beat inflation and move on. But when you try to do that, it also comes with an element of risk. It's a public fund, and there could be many choices there. So a risk will come in the attempt to beat the inflation. Are there any automated strategies or guidance in the super fund for people to use it effectively to stay away from unwanted risk, or to keep themselves between the emotional barriers of fear and greed?
No, see, inflation is inevitable, and I think we were, I don't know whether I should say lucky or unlucky, but inflation was pretty high last few years, and RBI had a difficult time managing that inflation, and that's why we saw the interest rates went up, and Australia is the only country, even though they mimic US, US has already reduced their rates, but Australia is, I would say, still a bit conservative on that stand, where they are not reducing their interest rate anytime soon. But having said that, inflation is obviously inevitable. There are strategies, and it's like any other investment instrument, right, Mr. Chandrakant? I always feel that diversifying the investment portfolio is helpful. so people can spread the risk and improve the potential for returns. So that's why I was saying that if somebody has got a risk appetite, if you have, let's say, a good risk appetite, maybe put in instruments within super as well, which can, let's say, focus more on growth rather than just 3 or 4% return. Of course, for older investors, they might prefer more stability. So I think depending on people's age, depending on their risk appetite, put in instruments within super, which is more aligned to their long-term growth. And secondly, like I was saying, diversifying is the best way, whether it's through ETFs, mix of asset classes, real estate, term deposits, etc. So if you have a good mix of debt versus equity, I feel that's a good way of, even if let's say one thing blows up, the other things keeps your overall portfolio return sane. So that's one way. And the second is that one should continually review and adjust their contributions as per the different life stages. So like I was saying at the beginning, that at least a good practice that I follow is that I check my super every 6 months. I'm with a super fund provider that provides free financial advice. I usually talk to the investment planner and I ask that, hey, given my age and given my other portfolio, am I in the right portfolio? Because I have good risk taking ability, I have put myself in the highest risk taking bracket. But at the same time, because I have other ways to mitigate it, so overall it works out nicely for me. I'm not saying everyone needs to do the same thing, but to each his own. Then, like I said, government policies are also there that people can take benefit of, whether it's through first home saver schemes. Super is not flexible, a lot of compassionate grounds on which people can early access their super as well. The best place to go and watch is the ATO website. So there are ways to mitigate strategy.
One of the comments you made was when
inflation,
somebody
but
makes
I
a
think
salary
if people are
sacrifice
well
and they
informed,
will be taxed
that's
at a
the great
differential
way. If
rate
people are not
unlike
well
the
informed, the best way is to
marginal
work
rate.
with a
So
practitioner.
I personally feel it's kind of a tax loophole that a high net worth or a high income guy can contribute big time into it and save taxes. Is it true, or is there more things to know? The checks and balances which have been put on the system.
So definitely, and I think it's in many countries. So for example, I know in India as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that if somebody is earning more than 50 lakhs, I believe there's a surcharge, right? So similar logic I am transposing here. So here, if somebody's income is exceeding $250,000 Australian dollar in a particular financial year, instead of the concessional contribution being taxed at 15%, instead of that, it's 30%. Okay, so that's a big jump. So it's obviously, but on the other hand, if you look at it, it's still lower than the highest marginal rate, right, of 45%. So in Australia, the highest you can be charged if you are earning more than 190,000 US, not USD, AUD, is 45%. So just last year, there was a stage 3 tax cuts. So previously, anyone who is earning more than $180,000 was charged at 47%. Now, after the stage 3 tax cuts, anyone whose salary is more than 190,000 is charged at 45%. So that's the highest that they can be charged. Now, if you look at super, if somebody's income is more than 250,000, there the concessional contributions are taxed at 30%. For anyone who is earning less than $250,000, it's still the 15%. So obviously, the higher you're earning, the government wants more of that pie. But like I said, I think if you compare it to the highest marginal rate of 45%, you're still better off 15%. And when I say income here, income doesn't just mean the salary that somebody is drawing. It includes any bonuses, any overseas income, interest income, dividends, whatever, like any form of income that you have earned, capital gains, taxes, rental income, whatever you can say. It's your total income that's accessible for that year. If that is more than $250,000, fortunately, they are taxed at 30% instead of 15% in super.
Anyway, for one reason I'm very happy today. People keep blaming India, this, like this, but at least I pay lesser tax than the Australia. So I have a great association with Australia. I have been to Australia multiple number of times. I lived in the state of Tasmania way back in '92. I lived in cities like Hobart, Devonport, all these towns for about 3 months. I have visited multiple cities multiple number of times. I had been to Sydney multiple number of times, Melbourne multiple number of times, Perth, Adelaide, all these places. But one thing I'm very happy today is that I pay lesser tax compared to the top taxpayer in the Australia. That's something that makes me happy that I chose India to to live my life. Anyway,
I think, unfortunately, you can't escape taxes. It's very transparent system, so I think you just can't escape that.
exactly, I and they just keep discussing on that. When will we get a rebate on taxes? We expect Nirmala Sitharaman to be kind to us to pay lesser taxes because we don't get anything except the security, policing, and other things. Anyway, that's it. Anyway, we are lucky ones who are at least are able to pay taxes. That's the way we'll say thanks to the God to keep us this way. Coming